The topic employee compensation and wages in India, which has been dealt with several Indian labor laws. A number of these laws has been examined in this. So here, legal interpretation cannot be altered or modified. Literal presentation of legal definitions, which has already been made in Indian labor laws. According to Section 2 of Payment of Wages Act 1936, which defines wages as any remuneration, whether it is a salary, allowance, or otherwise, whichever the prerequisites, expressed in terms of money or capable of being so expressed, which would, if the terms of employment are implied, whether it is fulfilled or not. So it is about again be capable to a person employed in respect of his employment or of work done in such employment and includes the following of the components. So these components are any remuneration which is payable under any reward or settlement between the parties or order of a court. And one more thing, any remuneration to which the person employed is entitled to in respect of overtime work or holidays or any other leave period. So this employment also includes any additional remuneration which is payable under the terms and conditions of employment, either it is a bonus or other perks and all. So any sum by means of termination of employment of a person who employed is payable under any law like contract or any instrument which provided for the payment of such sum, whether with or without deductions, but it doesn't provide for the time within which the payment is to be made. So any bonus like profit sharing or any other scheme like which does not form part of remuneration payable um, under the terms and conditions of the employment or which is not payable under any settlement between the parties or any other court of order. According to Industrial Dispute Act 1947, with regard to payment of wage, again we have explanation about wage. This act is also defines the wage. So here, according to Industrial Dispute Act, the wage is defined as any remuneration capable of being expressed in terms of money. So which would, in the terms of employment, and implied were fulfilled be capable to a workman in respect of his employment or of work done in such employment or includes the following components like such allowance, the value of any accommodation given by the company, supply of light, water, medical attendance, or other any other kind of the amenities used by the employee or concessional supply of food and grains, food grains and all. So it also includes any other traveling concessions. So this is what wage was defined in Industrial Dispute Act, but here Industrial Dispute Act does not include the following in the wages. Those components are bonus, any contribution payable by the employer like pension funds or provident fund, any kind of the benefits of workers, and any gratuity which is payable on the termination of their service. Similarly, the Section 2B of Minimum Wages Act 1948 is also defined the word wages like all remunerations capable of being expressed in terms of money, even if the terms of contract of employment were fulfilled, they can be payable or persons employed in respect of their employment. Work done in such employment includes house rent allowance, everything. Wage determination in organized and unorganized sector. See here in India, we have a uniform and comprehensive wage policy which is covering all sectors of economic is not available. But however, wage determination in both organized and unorganized sector follows some uniform norms. So in organizations which is classified under the organization sector and its wage determination is primarily based on negotiations and settlements. Wherein in organization sector, in unorganized sector, the central and state governments intervene in the scheduled nature of employments through the enforcement of the Minimum Wages Act 1948. So here minimum rate of wages is also includes special allowances and variable dearness allowance, which is linked in consumer price index. So VDA is revised twice a year, usually in the month of April and October. So here central government and 26 state governments and also union territories have adopted this VDA, variable dearness allowance, as a component of minimum wage. So the 28th Indian Labour Conference in 1985, which was recommended a national basic subsistence level of wages which is below and which no wages may be fixed regardless the nature of the work and again the nature of the employment. Uh, so in the absence of uniformity in minimum wages, usually the central government adopted the concept of national floor level minimum wage, wherein this national floor level minimum wages as on February 2004, which is determined by central government, is fixed at the rate of 66 rupees per day. So here we have some tax implications of compensations. See this tax implications of compensation, which typically vary in countries. But in India, the Income Tax Act stipulates the tax payable for income from the salaries. So salary. So this word salary generally means it's a monetary compensation, which is an employee gets from the employer. However, the definition of the term salary under the Income Tax Act is much wider than what is normally understood. So the term salary for the purpose of Income Tax Act, which includes monetary as well as non-monetary payment in the form of facilities such as housing accommodation, interest-free loans, and some certain reimbursement and all. So here, for any income to be termed as salary, there should exist a relationship of an employer and an employee between payer and pay. So Compensation and Income Tax Act. We see this in this Income Tax Act. The term compensation is used as synonym of the term salary. So hence the definition of salary can also be implied to compensation and the term salary has been defined differently for different purposes in the IT Act, that's Income Tax Act. So under Section 17, salary includes the of wages, any in addition to any salary or wages. the salary which is not availed by the portion of expenses and all. So which can be transferred and transferred balance in the recognized provident funds to the entity is taxable. So organizational compensation processes are different from each company. Widely, Income Tax Act has further extended the term salary to include profit in lieu of salary under class 3. So this clause extends the term salary to any amount of compensation due to received by an assessee from his employer or former employer, any connection with the termination of this employment, everything that includes. So in addition, the amount of any compensation due to or received by an assessee, employer or former employer, whomever it may be. So in connection with this modification of these terms and conditions of employment, this act would be considered as. So the actual uh, import of the principles of Income Tax Act is that the payment must be arising due to that boss and worker relationship, which is typical relationship between payee and payer. So with this exceptions of gratuity and commuted pension, retrenchment compensation, house raise allowance, all such payments are constructed as a part of compensation, and again it is taxable under Income Tax Act. So let us see Income Tax Act, 17 of 2 of Income Tax Act. So it is in general prerequisites or non-monetary benefits, which is apart from the salary which is received by the employees. So in other words, incidental benefits received in addition to regular salaries, which constitute the prerequisites. So since the prerequisites are non-monetary benefits, they have to be valued and converted into monetary terms. So here the term salaries under section 17 of 1, which includes uh, perquisites, uh, which are taxable. So the underlying reason for considering perquisites as part of salary is a benefit. So in addition to this, perquisites are incidental and in addition to regular wages also. While designing this compensation, it is very important to understand that what constitutes these perquisites. So, and Tax Act, Section 17 of 12, that is considering the following components of compensation as perquisites. So, the value of rent accommodation which is provided by employer typically. So, the value of any concession in the matter of rent respecting any and the value of any benefit, any amenity granted or provided at free of cost or at concessional rates, like by the company to the employee who is director of that company. So by the company to an employee who is being a person who has substantial interest and one more like A and B of the subclass come under the head salaries. This subclause shall apply to the any benefit which is provided by the company at free of cost or employee in a like allocation of the shares, debenture, and the claims issued is behalf of central government. So how do the HRA calculation would be in the income according to the Income Tax Act under section 8 was like when we are talking about rent-free residential accommodation, there is a necessity to calculate all this. So here, such perquisites are valued differently from for government employees and employees of statutory organizations, and also for the employees of other organizations. So HRA calculations here, employees receiving HRA and also incur expenditures on rent, they can claim income tax exemption for the least amount of the following calculations. Like here, HRA amount actually received from the employer and rent actually paid less than 10% of the salary. So 40% of the salary, 50%, that means 50% in case of Mumbai, Chennai, Calcutta, and Delhi. So here salary means usually basic and dearness allowance. So if dearness allowance is provided per the terms of the employees, so income tax exemption amount can be calculated like for say basic salary is 5,000 rupees wherein dearness allowance is 1,000 rupees and HRA is 2,000 rupees per month, and you uh, here actually the 2,000 rupees monthly rent that we have to calculate like this. So basic salary is 5,000 for 12 months, it is 60,000 rupees. Dearness allowance is 1,000 rupees, that is for 12 months 12,000 rupees. House rent allowance is 2,000 for 12 months it is 24,000 rupees. So here annual rent paid is 24,000 rupees, right? So here let us assume that employees stay in a place where 40% of the basic plus DA is considered to be a slab of HRA. Then again the calculation would be like actual HRA received by the employee is 24,000 but rate paid in excess of 10% of the salary. That means 24,000 minus 7,200 rupees, which is into 16,800 rupees. That means 40% of the salary is 28,800 rupees. Therefore, 16,800 rupees can be exempted and the balance of 7,200 rupees shall be included in the gross salary. That means if one stays in his own house, the entire HRA received from the employer is taxable. So conditions such as inclusion of HRA in the salary component who is staying in the rented house and payment of actually more than 10% of this, these important requirements of getting tax benefits for HRA. So staying with parents in a parental house and paying HRA to them can qualify for tax exemption. So however, claiming exemption for payment of rent made to the spouse is also allowed usually. So this is how the HRA has to be calculated. And usually the calculation part explained here. So here are some other provisions that's under income tax, how the salary person can have the tax benefits under these sections. So section 80D, which is discussing about medical insurance premiums. According to section 80D, medical insurance for employee, spouse and children or parents even that will be comes under tax benefit wherein 16,000 rupees for self, spouse and children, extra 15,000 rupees for of insurance for parents. So here the parents are senior citizens and extra sum should be read as 20,000 rupees. Therefore, maximum of 35,000 rupees per annum the employee can claim as medical insurance under 80D. So 80C is a general reduction wherein for this investment of provident funds, life insurance, ULIP, stamp duty on houses, fixed deposits for years, bonds and all that. Those can be have tax exemption under 80C. 80CCC is tax exemption where the deduction in case of contribution to pension funds. However, it should be noted that surrender value or employer contribution is considered as income under this section. That means maximum 1,50,000 rupees. So as per uh, if under 80C, 1,50,000 rupees can be given as exemption. See, 80CCD is talking about NPS, new pension schemes, wherein employees of central government and other eligibles are will go for this. So here the sum of 10% of the salary. That means after having deductions under 80C, 80CC and all, still we have some NPS, new pension schemes. That means secondly, that could be claimed here. And 80DD. See, this 80DD is for maintenance, including the treatment or insurance, the lives of physical disabled dependent relatives. That has the also limit like 50,000 rupees. In case if the disability is severe, up to 75,000 rupees, that the employee can claim tax benefit here. And towards a medical treatment for self or relatives who is suffering from the specified diseases, that means under some specific diseases, up to, of course, that starts amount is increased to 40,000 rupees. In case patient is senior citizen, up to 60,000 that they can claim. If it is the case of physically disabled person, that is for up to 1 lakh, the tax exemption can be given. So for interest payment or loan taken for higher education, either it is for self, spouse or children, that can be claimed under 80E. So here the actual amount paid as interest and starts from the financial year in which the employee starts paying interest and runs till the interest is paid for. Then only it is applicable. And 80G is for donation to the charitable societies. Rent paid will come under 80GG. And 80GGA is towards a donation to the scientific research or so these are the few sections which where employee can claim the tax exemptions. And here we have another one like leave travel concessions. See, leave travel concession is very important prerequisite which is received by employees from their employers. So this LTC is paid by employer for the employee and his family who travel to any place in India. So this is given either in a certain block of 2 years or in a certain block of 4 years. So it is paid as lump sum. So most cases 1 month basic plus dearness allowance will be given majority of the cases. But in the case of government and public sector banks, LTC is entitled of employees varies with their ranks and their hierarchical levels. So often it is limited to a certain distance. That means whatever may be the LTC amount, income tax exemption to actual cost of journey. That is like the total amount spent on transportation either by air, rail or road or other travel expenses in the city of destination such as taxis, some other auto fares. These also can be claimed and as exemptions. So to claim the income tax exemptions, it is very important to preserve the proofs of travel, and that is like the actual tickets receipts from the travel agencies and the auto charges, everything that cab receipts and all. So some organizations have a system of this payment of leave travel allowance. So instead of LTC along with the monthly salary, this is taxable with effect from 2012 April 1st. Then the and another thing is leave travel. Another thing is home loan and tax planning. So in case of home loans, income tax exemption is available for both for the payment of the principal amount as well as for the interest also. So for repayment of principal amount, maximum deduction is allowable for tax exemption is 1,50,000 rupees, but it is covered under 80C or 80CC. Hence, in the case of Section 80C, allowable benefits amount is already 1,50,000 rupees. So here, employee may not get the tax exemption benefit for the repayment of principal loan amount. So, however, under 24B, Section 24B, interest of housing loan can be claimed as tax exemption. So, which is maximum extent of 2 lakhs rupees, up to 2 lakhs rupees, the employee can claim as tax exemption, which is provided, it is self-occupied. So, in case the house is given to rent, then the difference between the rent and let out has to be detected from the actual interest paid. So for the housing loan and the only the difference amount can be claimed as tax exemption. So payment of tax on non-monetary perquisites by employer. So Income Tax Act provides for employer to pay tax on the value of non-monetary perquisites which is given by the employers to the employees. Here perquisites are given as an incentive to the employees. So here employer do not deduct any TDS for them. So this practice is known as tax grow-ups. So that this is the system of payment to an employee, some compensation for which the tax is paid by the employer. So here tax gross-ups practice are most prevalent in the case of executive compensation. This practice is restricted globally by the regulatory authorities as it is considered as a process of hiding the actual income of a salary. So here the perquisites includes the following like the value of rent-free accommodation, the value of any concessional. Earlier already we discussed all this. The value of any benefit given to the employee at free of cost or at concessional rates. So in case of director's role, if the company is providing him the director role and giving him some perquisites and all. So all these things would be considered as perquisites. So here accommodation is also matter for the purpose of valuation of perquisites of unfurnished accommodation. Here salary taxpayers valuation of perquisites in respect of accommodation would be at these cases. So accommodation, gas, electricity usage, water usage, free or concessional education, interest-free or concessional loans, and use of assets of the company, transfer of assets, medical reimbursements, all these things will be considered as perquisites and benefits to the employees. So now let us look into the cost to the company. After the discussion of uh, different definitions of wages, it is very important to understand the definition and context of cost to company. So the concept of cost to company actually that is originated from the state of US, so United States. So although there is no uniformity in the practices, there are some common parameters which are considered by many of the organizations while they are computing their CTCs. So here a more generic definition for CTC is expenditure a company that makes directly on employees, excluding the cost of infrastructure such as space, desktop computers, air conditioning, and some other costs incurred from training. So it includes the salary paid directly to the employee, the benefits directly attributed to the employees, such as company's contribution to the provident fund, pension funds, medical insurance premium, life insurance premium, cost of loans which is offered to the employee. So companies even include the cost of loan where the employee is entitled to, but the expenses for even but not availed for. Actually, the mobile expenses is also will be included in the CTC. So, wherein if we look into the calculation of CTC, the total compensation includes the value of all perks and benefits. So, here an employee is offered by the company in addition to employee salary. So, calculating annual CTC is very important both from the organization and even from the employee's perspective. Organization can ascertain the HR cost, whereas the employees can understand what they are being offered, as they can benchmark the CTC with the other comparable organizations. So it also helps them to decide on job switch. However, as mentioned at the outset, it is apparently different and difficult to arrive at a CTC, as many components of CTC would come and would be considered by the company may not be considered by the employee. That means in the as a part of total compensation package. So here organizations needs to be very careful when they're adding all the compensation components to the equivalent cash value, which has to arrive at the comprehensive CTC value. So this is what the CTC would be considered by many of the organizations.